Hey guys, now it's time to start looking at two thought experiments that are really designed, from my point of view, to help you intuit that the body is actually a important component of what personal identity is. It's not really, I don't think it's logically demonstrated in a classic kind of Cartesian way or even in a Lockean way, but the thought experiments are definitely experiments that are there to get you to really consider or intuit, in that old philosophical sense, that perhaps the body is really important when considering personal identity. So what are we going to do? Well, our overall goal is to explore two thought experiments that are designed to make us consider the importance of the body in personal identity. We need to explore the first one, which is called Dr. Nefarious' Evil Torture Experiment. And then we need to explore the second one, which is what happens when all these memories are erased or replaced. More importantly, the second one is the Ronald Reagan scenario. Okay? And the third one is we will understand how Michaels argues that the body is an important aspect to personal identity, basically by getting us to intuit it by reflecting on how we react to these thought experiments. So write these down, please, 1, 2, 3, and then from there, could you answer this APK? How would you convert yourself, or how would you turn into Ronald Reagan? Write a note. Alright, so thought experiment number 1, we're going to call it Dr. Nefarious. So it asks us to consider, what if Dr. Nefarious invited you over to his office and sat down and had a cup of tea with you, and he told you, hey, I am going to torture you, right? So this is my first idea of torture. I'm going to make you listen to Ed Sheeran for 1 whole hour. I'm going to torture you completely, right? I'm going to torture you. And, if he says that, well, what does it immediately make you think about, well, your memories and how you construct your personal identity? That's what this whole experiment's really about. So it goes into some more details, and I'll quickly get into that. But basically, the scenario is Dr. Nefarious invites you into the office and says, hey, I'm going to torture you. And of course, we get some more detailed nuances in the experiment anyway, but we're supposed to consider what that means for personal identity when we consider the extra bits. So take a note. So let us consider what happens when memories are actually erased. So Dr. Nefarious invited you into his office, and he says, hey, look, I am going to actually torture you, but I'm going to torture you at 5 o'clock. And when I torture you at 5 o'clock, before that, at 4:55, I'm going to erase any memory I've had of this conversation, right? So let's look at this visual sentence again. So let's consider what happens if he says, look, I'm going to erase at 4:55 any memories of this discussion we've had about torturing you. Here's another form of torture for me, which would be watching maths. So I'm going to erase that at 4:55, and then at 5 o'clock I am going to definitely torture you, alright? Are you comforted at all by the fact that your memories of the conversation are going to be erased at, well, 4:55? Answer the question quickly. So these memories are going to be erased, okay? And some people say, no, not at all. I'm not comforted at all because it's still my body that's going to be tortured, okay? But if personal identity was nothing but psychological continuity, you would be comforted because it'll get erased at 4:55, just the conversation, not everything in your life, just the conversation. You have no idea that it's coming, and then it comes, okay? So you should, at the time when it comes, it's completely unexpected. So why wouldn't you be comforted? Most people would still believe, though, that it's them that are going to experience the pain, right? Take a note. So why not? Now, in the textbook, they say the first objection is that your psychological continuity is still going to be the same. It's just that you have only really erased the memories of your conversation with Dr. Nefarious. So even though it's interrupted, it essentially is the same psychological continuity. So it really is the same you that's going to be tortured. Or to put it another way, it is the same personal identity that's going to be tortured. All right? So you're still thinking, ouch, this is going to hurt me, okay? Take a note. Michaels basically says, look, okay, well, I anticipate this, I can understand this. What if Dr. Nefarious said that I'm going to raise all of your memories at 4:57, okay? Therefore, really, is it going to be you that is tortured? Is it going to be you that has your face, covered in rats that are going to gnaw you to death? Are you going to basically have wood put under your fingernails? Or how can it be you if that psychological continuity is going to go completely? And she would argue, well, actually, most people would say no, but then they would probably reflect a bit more and say, well, actually, yes, this body's still going to feel pain, so I'm going to feel pain. Take a note. So she gets us to think about the fact that maybe there are grounds for rejecting the idea that memory is the sole sufficient criteria for personal identity. Perhaps the body does play a role. Maybe we need to explore how the body does play a role. Take a note. Alright, let's do some reading. You might wonder at this point whether there are any positive reasons for endorsing the body theory, or whether it is simply a place to which one retreats only in defeat when they can't deal with the circularity problem. The following case is designed to persuade you that there is at least some plausibility. So here's the thing, and you'll find this out later. She's not 100% on board with the idea of body theory, but she's saying it is plausible. It's something we can consider, that there is at least some plausibility to the body theory. Take a note. Suppose that an evil scientist, Dr. Nefarious, has selected you as his prime subject for a horrible experiment. You are dragged into his office and he says, tomorrow at 5 o'clock you will be subjected to the most terrible tortures. Your nails will be pulled out one by one, rats will be caged around your head, burning oil will drip slowly on your back, and the remainder I leave as a surprise. Now, are you worried about what will happen to you at 5 o'clock tomorrow? Well, rhetorically, we'd all go, sure, absolutely, I don't want to feel the pain. If you have any sense, you are, right? Of course, most people would think that way. You think of the excruciating pain and suffering you will undergo, and you would surely do just about anything to avoid it. But now Dr. Nefarious says, tomorrow at 4:55 I will use my demonizer to erase your memory of this conversation. Are you still anxious about what is going to happen to you at 5 o'clock? Surely you are. So she'd actually argue, yeah, most people are. After all, the fact that you won't, between 4:55 and 5 o'clock, be anticipating your torture doesn't entail that the torture itself will be less painful. So you're still going to feel the pain. When you forget that your calculus professor told the class there would be a test on Friday, you aren't thereby spared the experience of taking the test. You still experience it. In fact, in that case, the experience is made worse by your not actually having the opportunity to anticipate it. Could be worse. And let's not forget too that there's the objection that you might raise, which is, hey, hang on, even though you've taken out the conversation, I still am almost essentially the same, just a little bit interrupted. So it still is me that's going to feel the pain. So she moves on to this next paragraph right here. Now, Dr. Nefarious says, tomorrow at 4:57 I will use my demonizer to erase all of your memories. Are you still anxious about what will happen to you at 5 o'clock? It is natural to describe the situation as one in which you will undergo horrible torture, though you won't know who you are or why this is happening to you. So you're saying even though you've got rid of what Locke would say is your personal identity, or is yourself, you will still feel in that situation that you are going to feel the pain of the torture. Okay? You will still experience your fingernails being pulled out, your back being burned, your face being eaten up by rats. Surely those experiences are ones you would like to avoid. So really she's just confirming everything here that we've put in the summary. Okay? Maybe take some notes if you've got anything else extra to add. Okay? Alright, now moving on. The thought experiment 2 is got to do with this guy, ex-president, or, late president of the United States, Ronald Reagan, and his memories. You see, Dr. Nefarious modifies the experiment a little bit, and he says, look, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to implant his memories in your brain just before I torture you. So I'm going to erase all the memories that you have, and I'm going to implant only his memories into your brain. Take a note. So this leads us to question, right, who is going to suffer the unbelievable torture, which apart from, having your fingernails pulled out and your face encaged by rats, could actually be listening to Justin Bieber. I couldn't imagine anything more horrible, right? So, of course, most people would think, well, who is it that's going to be tortured? Is it you or is it Ronald Reagan? After all, you have Ronald Reagan's memories, and therefore you probably have his psychological continuity, right? Take a note. Meredith Michaels says, upon hearing this, you might think that you are the one who's going to have their face encaged by rats, and they're going to have their fingernails pulled out or wood put under them, despite the fact that you have Ronald Reagan's memories, okay? Take a note. And then Meredith Michaels says, look, these two scenarios, these scenarios that are brought up, they're not about proving that body theory is superior to mind theory. Not at all. No, so body theory is superior to memory theory when defining personal identity. But they do get us to intuit, or really get us to consider that maybe the body is part of it. It's an important part of what personal identity is, because you immediately make those kind of assumptions, all right? And also, if you subscribe to her thought experiments, and you believe that it is you that's going to be tortured in all those cases, if you believe that, right, then you have to think, obviously it's you that's being tortured, then you have to think that you are Shwanda. Shwanda is not Wanda, you are Shwanda. Take a note. Alright, let's read what she said. Finally, Dr. Neferis says to you at 4:58, I'm going to use my Rememorizer to implant in your brain all of Ronald Reagan's memories. Though this may not please you for personal or political reasons, the relevant question remains this: are you still worried about what is going to happen tomorrow at 5 o'clock? Isn't it, again, perfectly natural to describe the situation as one in which you will undergo horrible torture, or the while believing that you are Ronald Reagan? So you would actually believe I might believe that I'm Ronald Reagan, but it's still me that's going to be tortured. Take a note. That's a really good nuance. I might believe that I'm Ronald Reagan, but it's still me that's going to be tortured. So that would imply, though I don't know if it's been directly said, it might say it later, you are going to be tortured, but you've been tricked into thinking of someone else. So really, you are the body being tortured. Take a note. Do you not now remain concerned that you are Ronald Reagan? Do you not now remain concerned that you will experience excruciating pain and intolerable suffering? Look at your fingernails while you consider your answer to that question. What this story demonstrates is not the conclusive superiority of the body theory over memory or brain theory. Remember, memory and brain theory are kind of closely related, because the brain, if it's not memories that you're looking at and you just look at the brain holds the memories. It doesn't produce the experience by itself, all that stuff we talked about before in brains, bikes, and body theory. So the theory of memory or brain theory, but rather the importance of our bodies in our self-identity. So she's just saying these don't definitively answer all the questions and make us come up with a superior theory to brain or memory theory. They probably still play a part, but the body, she thinks, is a component. It still has to be something that's considered when thinking about what self-identity is. Take a note. This is something that tends to get lost in the traditional conceptions of personal identity. Furthermore, returning to the case of Shwanda, we can now see that it's not altogether preposterous to argue that Shwanda is indeed you, deluded into believing that she is Wanda. Again, you're tricked into thinking that you're Ronald Reagan, but you know it's you that's actually going to feel the pain, right? Same goes here. You are tricked into thinking you're Wanda, though you are actually you, right? In other words, anyone who wishes to dismiss the possibility must also dismiss the possibility that the person who undergoes the torture is indeed you, deluded into believing that you are Ronald Reagan. So let me go over this again. To dismiss the possibility, you must also dismiss the possibility that the person who undergoes the torture is indeed you, deluded into believing that you're Ronald Reagan. So if you dismiss that you're a Wanda, then you have to dismiss that you are the person who's being tortured, but you are tricked into thinking you're Ronald Reagan. That's the way it works. Take a note. Alright, so it's pretty clear to see that those little thought experiments are not logically arguing in a kind of Cartesian sense, look, if A, therefore B. There is a little bit of logic, like if you accept the premise that you are Ronald Reagan, no, you are you, but tricked into thinking you're Ronald Reagan, then you must accept the fact that you are you, tricked into thinking you're Wanda. I mean, that kind of analogy works, right? That's a piece of logic. But really, the thought experiment is just basically getting you to think in that situation, why do you believe that it's you that's going to be tortured? Why do you actually think it's you being tortured, even though you're tricked into thinking something else, right? So we outlined Dr. Nefaris's evil torture experiment. We've done that. We've outlined what happens if we erase those memories. We've outlined what happens if we replace those memories with Ronald Reagan's. And we kind of understand now that most people would actually think, no, I would still be anxious about it, despite that the erasure is happening or the replacement's happening or the conversation's been erased, all right? Because I still feel that it's my body that would experience it, so I still feel it would be me, though I could imagine or could understand that I would feel I am somebody else. So therefore, she's saying, look, the body has to play a role in defining what identity is. It's not the sum total of it, but it has to play a role, because most people would believe that even though those scenarios happened, it is still them that is going to experience the pain of the torture. Alrighty? Have a go at doing the exam-like question. That'd be awesome, and thanks for listening.